talk about the defense budget. The union budget has been presented, and if we look at the defense portion out there, then the allocation for defense in the budget has been increased to 4.78 lakh crore rupees for this particular fiscal year. Now, this also includes capital expenditure worth 1.35 lakh crore rupees, wherein this is a hike of around 18.75% from the last year. And it is said that this is all set to give a big push to the defense modernization. We'll look at all these aspects. We'll try and also understand how the modernization process will, be helped with this extra amount of money which has been allocated, and also in terms of policy, what are the key focus areas when we talk about defense sector for the next year as far as the government is concerned. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with retired Major General Dhruv C. Katoch is joining us, Director, India Foundation. Also, we have with us retired Major General Ravi Arora, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, defense correspondent of the Tribune, is also joining us. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha Television. And let me begin with you, Major General Ravi Arora. Let's start by, understanding the entire allocation as far as the defense sector is concerned in a holistic manner, and then we'll look at, various aspects of this allocation.
Okay, I've been analyzing the defense budget for the last 12 to 15 years. And every time, anybody who's interested looks at a few things at the defense budget. One is how much increase is there year to year, and does it cater for inflation, and is there a real increase in the defense budget? Second is, as a percentage of GDP, where does it stand as compared to earlier years? As a percentage of government spending, how much is it? And how much is the allotment for capital expenditure, which is at the heart of the defense budget? Then, as compared to China and Pakistan, where do we stand? And the most important is, does it meet the projected requirements for the next couple of years or 5 years of the armed forces? Because deals done in that year are going to fructify after a number of years, where installments are paid up and then the equipment starts coming. So, but as I said, the heart of the defense budget is the capital outlay, because that is what is used for buying new weapons, modernization, aircraft, ships, submarines. And the revenue outlay, although it is for maintenance and salaries, but one should not underestimate the value of the revenue allotment. There is little choice there, but remember, besides the salaries and maintenance of the establishments and equipment, it is also paying for, running of such things like satellites, the flying involved for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and particularly important in this year when a standoff has taken place with China, and we have had to build up logistically, we have had to deploy troops, we have to make accommodation for them, we have to operate more number of sensors, keeping an eye on the enemy. So revenue, this is all revenue expenditure, running expenditure for various equipment. Now, as far as the allotment goes, the army traditionally gets the least for the capital expenditure. And next is the Navy, and then is the Air Force. So when you say that the defense budget is 4.78 crores, and the defense minister said
4.78 lakh crore rupees.
Lakh crores, and the defense minister said it is 19% increase, and the highest increase in the last 10 years. Actual situation is that, yes, as compared to the budget estimates or the allocations which were announced last year in February, it is a 19% increase. But if you look at the 21,000 crores which were allocated subsequently for emergency purchases and fast-track procurements, then the increase is only 1.5%. So, it depends on how you look at it. But overall, in the last, since 1960, as a percentage of GDP, it is the lowest at 1.4%. Now, that doesn't give the true picture. The GDP itself may have increased, and 1.4 may be in rupee amount much more than what it was 1960. So, but you know, the parliamentary panel on defense has also been recommending that we should sustain it at an increase of 2.5 to 3% of the next few years if we are to meet our modernization requirements.
Okay.
So, you know, we can go into the figures for capital expenditure, for revenue expenditure,
Definitely.
for DRDO, for other things. But what stands out, and you are decoding the defense budget. On average, defense budget has increased at the rate of 9% year to year. And as a percentage of GDP, it is 1.4% today. Since the last 10 years, the revenue budget has remained 49 to 59% of the overall defense budget. The capital expenditure has also hovered between 35% to 26% of the overall defense budget. And although defense expenditure had gone down in the NDA government years since it came to power, but since the last 2 years, now it has started going up, and it is reaching the level when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the prime minister. But also remember, India is the third largest military spender in the world.
Yes.
So this is an overall picture of our defense expenditure.
Definitely. That is quite an apt summary if we are looking at, different kind of numbers there for the defense budget. Let me also bring in Ajay Banerjee here. Ajay, you've also been following, the defense budget for quite a number of years now, and the kind of trajectory which you see there, as Major General Ravi Arora was also pointing out. How do you analyze that? That is one aspect in terms of number, and two, the key focus areas there.
Vishal, I will narrow down to two little aspects. First is the capital allocation. That is 1.35 lakh crores, or approximately $18 billion to extend in dollar terms. Now, $18 billion is big money for a country like India. The capital allocation has doubled in the past 4 years. In February 2017, when the budget was announced, the capital allocation hovered around 69,000 crores. So we are at 135 lakh crores at the moment. So that means it has doubled in 4 years, which is a very big achievement. If you see it rationally, it's a very big achievement. And from here on, Vishal, if we grow, I'm talking only of the capital. If it grows at 9% or 10% annually, we will hit a number of 2 lakh crores, or approximately the dollar remains at the same rate. We will be hitting almost $30 billion in the next 5 to 7 years. It's a huge sum. Now the time has come to decide what should be our benchmarks for capital spending. See, India is a country which has got limited resources. Let us not get carried away that we're going to match America. We have limited resources, and the budget allocated to the capital this time is stupendous in my belief. I use the word stupendous because $18 billion is a huge amount of money. So we have to set benchmarks now. Where do we live with the capital? What do we get in the capital? 10 years down the line, what will we need? Warfare is changing very fast. Yesterday I was at the Aero India in Bangalore. The air chief said the new technologies will create new trouble for us. That means we have to look at new technologies which may be requiring more money at the moment. But those technologies have to be acquired. So in my belief, the capital allocation is the point which I want to make. It's very good. We have to keep it in the same manner. We should reach $30 billion in 5 to 7 years of capital spending. That should be more than enough, Vishal.
Okay, definitely that is something which is really important. The amount of money and the way that money has to be spent, that's also a big question to be answered there, and a plan to be put in place for. Let me also bring in Major General Dhruv C. Katoch here. General Katoch, from your point of view, I have two questions here, in terms of the way this amount of money has been allocated and the way this amount of money has to be spent from two perspectives. One, indigenization, and two, modernization. How do we intend to move ahead on these two planes?
All right, Vishal. Now, when I have actually seen the budget, the present one and the previous one, I think one thing we must realize that we have just gone through a very bad year, the COVID year, and to have given the same amount of resources plus something, I think for the defense has been a great achievement. The finance and the government were operating on a very restricted scale, And for them to have still carried on and given, I think, is commendable. Now, I personally, I don't really go on to things like, percentage of GDP, etc. I think it is much more important to look at how is this money going to be spent. And I think the key lies here. Now, on the two particular factors, one is on indigenization, and the second factor is modernization. I think this is where the nub of the whole system lies. Now, on indigenization, I think we need to move a great step forward in corporatization of the Ordnance Factory Board and in revamping the defense public sector units. Now, let us say theoretically, if we can improve the efficiency by 25 to 30%, we can say that we have got that much more budget. This is one. The second thing is, in my view, I think we have got to get the private sector in a very big way. Now, there is no country in the world which can simply depend on the public sector. If you take a country like the United States, the entire defense industry is run by the private sector. So the private sector needs to have a very big role to play. And once the private sector has a big role, we are going to find something phenomenal happening in India. Your defense corridors start getting established. Now, the two defense corridors which have been already planned in the previous years, one in Uttar Pradesh and one in Tamil Nadu, you see, once those defense corridors get activated, we are looking in terms of millions of jobs being created. And those millions of jobs being created create your defense industrial, where both the public and the private sector direct investment comes in. So what we are, in my view, what we are going to see is really a revamping of the administration, a revamping of the policies, the process which has started now and which are going to continue, and which hopefully over the period of time, we don't have to really start concerning ourselves with terms of 1.4 or 1.5 or 2% of GDP. We will have to look into terms of deliverables as to what is being delivered on the ground. And once that gets into motion, I think we are very well set on the path of modernization and indigenization. And this budget, in my view, shows the way.
Okay. So it is all about deliverables on the ground on these two aspects, which are really, really important as if you're looking at the defense infrastructure and the requirements of India are also concerned. Major Ravi Arora, your views there on these two aspects. You only spoke about numbers, and obviously numbers have to be understood very clearly to see as to where we are moving ahead. But when we're talking about the implementation on the ground, when we're talking about tangible results there, specifically with respect to indigenization and modernization, and as Major Katoch also pointed out, private sector will have to play a much more larger role there. We will have to, not only policy-wise, but also implementing those policies, we will have to ensure that.
I agree with you, but, the defense budget must include what we want to achieve and the roadmap to achieving that. As far as indigenization goes, we do see that the DRDO has been given more money. Well, that is one way of indigenization. But I would have liked to see more funds for R&D in the private sector, the government holding hands with the private sector. It's been said before that the government must help the private sector. They are not willing to invest in R&D unless the government assures them they will buy what they develop and design and produce. So I would have liked to see that. But remember, despite low defense expenditure so far, in the last 2-3 years,